League of Legends lore narrated. Lillia, the bashful bloom. In Ionia, magic is woven into the land. Forests spread vibrantly, and trees often boast nearly as many colors as leaves, touched by the wonders of the spirit realm. But there is one forest, hidden away, that draws on a different kind of magic. A garden, with a tree at its heart that gathers humanity's dreams in its blooms. The dreaming tree grew from a seed of the god willow, which towered over the ancient grove of Omikayalan. Cast loose when the god willow was tragically felled, the seed took root in what came to be known as the Garden of Forgetting. Nurtured by the Green Father, Ivern, as many of the descendants of Omikayalan were, the dreaming tree spiraled up, spreading the magic of humanity's desires each time the dream-laden buds bloomed. Lillia was born when one of the tree's own dreams was captured in a bud that fell to the ground before it could bloom, something that had never happened before. Sprouting into an awkward fawn creature with a flower bud still on her head, Lillia's only company was her mother tree, and the dreams that drifted to the garden each night. Lillia helped tend the buds, and learned about humanity through them. Enchanted by the people and places she glimpsed, she spent every waking moment experiencing a swirl of emotions and desires that mortals could only see when they closed their eyes. In caring for the dreams, Lillia also cared for the dreamers. She came to consider each of them a new friend, wanting nothing more than to one day greet the people who imagined such wonders. Lillia wanted it so badly that her own desires eventually gathered in a bud on the tree. But when Lillia finally did meet humans, it wasn't like remembering a familiar dream. It was more like waking up. Something was happening in the world outside Lillia's forest. War blazed like a fire through the land, and in time, fewer dreams began to reach the garden. The tree itself grew sick, and became infected with burls, writhing tangles in its trunk, which oozed darkness. Lillia did her best to nurture her mother tree and the dreams that remained in its buds, but it was not long before the garden became so weak that the violence of the world spilled in. One night, warriors entered the forest and chased a lone figure all the way to the dreaming tree. With a single errant blade slash, the branch containing Lillia's unrealized dream came thudding to the ground. Lillia panicked and forced them all to sleep, shocked at the difference between the mortals she thought she knew and the ones she had found. They were so afraid, more tangle than sparkle. They were like the burls. But as the warriors slept and Lillia wept, a dream emerged from the lone figure that others had been chasing. Weakly, it floated toward the broken branch on the ground and moved into the boug's bud. Lillia picked it up. She could feel the dream. As she whispered to it and soothed it, it glowed ever brighter, and so did she. The bud upon her head unfurled, and magic swirled around like sparkling pollen. In that moment, swept up in possibility and wonder, Lillia herself bloomed, until, with a sneeze, she sent the magic curling into the surrounding forest. The humans awoke one by one, unable to remember what had brought them to the forest or what they had done. None noticed the timid fawn behind the tree. With relief, Lillia watched the humans go, still seeing only confusing tangles, but knowing now that there were still a sparkle beneath it all. And if their dreams wouldn't come to the tree, she would have to bring the tree to them. Taking up her branch, Lillia left the garden and entered the world of humans, a world she had always wanted to know, but one that frightened her now more than anything. It was so unlike what she understood. Hiding just out of sight, Lillia now helps people's dreams be born, drawn forward by glimpses of who they could be and by what may be trapped beneath their tangles. By helping humans realize their deepest wishes, Lillia realizes her own, the bud on her head blooming as she is filled with joy. Though darkness may be encroaching on Ionia once more, It is but a mask, and beneath it lies the familiar sparkle of hope. Only by braving the world and braving herself can Lillia hope to untangle its burls. Lillia's short story, The Garden of Dreaming, by David Slagle. The child slowly makes her way into the forest, and sometimes beneath the forest, as the canopy of leaves weaves a green blanket around the clouds. Oh, and sometimes over the forest, when there are roots. Don't trip, little girl, don't trip. And now she's going through it, toward me. Eep! I stand in the shadows beyond the path leading away from the girl's village, where countless humans have gathered. The small bud on my head peeks out from behind a bush. My hooves dig nervous furrows into the ground, and I hug the branch from Mother Tree tightly to my chest, comforted by the familiar, swirly feeling of the bark. It's safe here, in the trees, or maybe a few more steps behind them. Just a few more. Even with so many humans in the village filling the hillside with life, the girl is alone. I hold my branch tighter, reminding myself of what I have to do. It's time to move forward, Lillia. Just one step. You can do this. Mother Tree is sick. She needs the girl's dream. I take the step. Or, at least, my hoof shifts a little. Oh, that didn't go very far. Okay, Lillia. Another one. This time, I lift up one shaky hoof, and before I can get too afraid, I slam it back down. Whoopsie. That was backward. The girl stops to sit beneath a tree not far from where I'm watching, just close enough that I can hear her crying softly into a ragged doll cradled in her arms. There's no one to wipe away her tears, but she's not entirely alone. Beneath everything, vibrating with potential in my branch, I can feel it. Her dream. The bud dangling from the tip of the bough shudders to radiant life now that it senses the child in her dream. Like the small flower on my head, the glowing bud and branch are also from Mother Tree, drawn to dreams just as much as the slumbering magic is drawn to them. Glittering pollen drifts from between its petals, and the shadows around me recede, fleeing the light before I can. My hoof is showing! Eep! I sprawl and contort all four of my legs to fit in the shrinking shadow, wobbling as my balance threatens to give. The glimmering bud swings wildly as the bough sways with me, casting clouds of dust-like pollen that drift toward the girl through the leaves. And then, as the shadows move again, I stumble into the clearing where she awaits. All I can do is peer at her from behind my branch, too afraid to blink. But she doesn't see me. She presses her face into the doll, hiding her tears. Her sobs turn into whimpers, her whimpers into sighs. The pollen from the bud gradually settles around her, twinkling as the girl's eyes slowly flutter closed. She slumps against the tree, the doll sliding from her grasp. I'm still afraid to move. Something twirls out of the bough's bud and dances above my head. It's my old friend, the little dream that's traveled with me ever since I first left Mother Tree's mystical garden. As if sensing the other dream still snuggled inside the girl, my glittering friend dances through the air toward her. That was a close one, I say, as the dream flits back and forth. It skims above the girl and leaves a trail of sparkles that tickle her skin until she smacks her lips and wrinkles her nose. She snorts so loudly that I leap again, landing with a blush. I touch the petals of the small bud on my head, wondering if they're flushing as red as my cheeks. The child remains fast asleep. Why isn't her dream coming out? My friend continues to spin around the girl, trying to summon the other dream, but my eyes are drawn to the doll on the ground instead, the girl's hand hanging as if she still reaches for it, her fingers squeezing tight. Before I left the garden, the place was my home. I used to think that dreams were the things people wanted most every time they closed their eyes, but now I see that the things they want, the things that they reach for and hold on to, only make them sad. The thing I wanted most, which was to meet the dreamers, hurt Mother Tree. What if dreams aren't the things we want? I put down my branch. This time, you can do it, Lillia. Just close your eyes, like you're sleeping." Stumbling forward, I kneel beside the girl and take up her doll. What if dreams are the things we need? I start to hand the doll back to the girl, wary of getting this close, even to touch such a small human. Instinctively, she rolls over as she feels it against her chest, sitting up to pull the doll into a hug. Her tiny arms are just long enough to wrap around me as well. As she hugs the doll, she pulls me in closer and closer, and in that moment, we both find what we need to bloom. The girl's dream finally emerges in a luminous swirl, spiraling and dancing alongside my old friend, and filling the forest with so much wonder that I can feel it all the way down to my hooves. I want to prance! Like a color that has no name, each dream is so hard to describe. Is this dream the girl's sister, wrapping her in its arms, although the sisters have already said goodbye? Is it the doll she pretends is her sister before she puts on armor and left everything else behind? Or are these only the things the child grasped too hard while hugging her doll, and her dream is something deeper, something truer? "You miss your sister, don't you?" I whisper into her ear. "You need her love." Giving her that love, seeing it, and feeling it, is what I need too. I melt into the hug, and send dream dust spiraling as the small bud on my head twirls open. Both dreams curl into the large bud on my branch. "I'll whisper your dream to the tree. I'll remember," I tell the girl. "I'm glad I got to meet you," I add. I hope her dream hears me too. I let go of the girl and lay her down gently. With her sighs, she releases all that's been trapping her dream. Like so many mortals, her sister may never come back to give her the love she desires. That's why she needs to dream. That's why it will always be there, and she'll never be alone, as long as she remembers to close her eyes. That's why dreams are magical, and the little girl is too. I sneeze, and the dust pollen in the bud on my head swirls away, carrying the magic of the girl's dream into a wind that blows toward Mother Tree. "Whoopsie!" I blush, realizing that I'm in the open, and before the feeling of wonder completely fades, I prance back into the forest. The girl opens her eyes with a well-rested yawn. The sun is shining through the leaves above her. She's surprised to find herself still in the forest, and drops her doll in shock. Then, slowly, she remembers what it means to her, who gave it to her, and picks it back up. She holds the doll tight and starts to run through the clearing. "Oma! Oma! Has sister returned?" she cries to her grandmother. "I just saw her! I saw her!" The girl's small outline disappears, but in her wake, following the path where she ran, dream blossoms sprout from the sparkling pollen. Perhaps when the child returns, she will pick one of these flowers, and know that in her heart, though it can't be held, the love of her sister will always bloom. Thank you for listening to this video. Lillia is a new favorite champ of mine. I love playing her. I love her design. She's pretty fun. She's got some cute lore. Anyway, if you want to support some of these videos, head over to my Patreon, and also head out and check over my Twitter, where I've been posting a lot of my artwork and other stuff lately. Thanks for listening.